Nobody? Nobody? Okay. Oh, we're doing so many bad things. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. City Council regular meeting Thursday, January 2nd. Happy New Year. It is 6 p.m. All council are present. And if you would, please stand and join me for the pledges.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, everyone. Next up is item number 4, city employee recognitions, employee introductions. City Administrator.
Our building inspector, Wilbert Lenz, sent a thank you to Manuel Troncoso, a Public Works employee, for his assistance in doing a little translating with him with the builder. We also received a thank you, or Chief Eberhardt received a thank you from the Selma Police Chief, Dave Padula, thanking the chief for allowing Lieutenant Bellinger to be part of their promotion process in the city of Selma. He said that Lieutenant Bellinger was extremely professional and questions and input were excellent for the process. He further stated he is an excellent example of the professionalism of the Garden Ridge Police Department and represents the agency very well. And Denise Bissell, our utility clerk, has completed her 90-day or 180-day probationary period and has been released from probation. And that's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions on any of that? Okay, moving on now to item number 5, citizen comments. Before we started, we didn't have any. Do we have any? Still none. We have nobody signed up for citizens' comments. Moving on. Moving on to item number 6, consent agenda. It's pretty light because the things that we are asking for consideration will require some discussion tonight. So consent agenda item number 6, does anybody want anything pulled from the consent agenda? And if not, would anyone like to make a motion on a consent agenda?
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I have place 5 with a motion to approve the entire consent agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Place 2 the second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's unanimous. Moving on, item number 7, staff reports. First up is City Administrator. Ma'am, floor is yours.
The only thing that I have to add to my report is that e-billing was going to take place this month, but it has been delayed. We had some formatting issues, and we want to make sure that everything is perfect before we send any e-billing out. Our goal is to have the e-billing go out in the month of February. And that's all I had to add to my report.
Thank you, ma'am. And starting on the right side, any questions or comments? City Administrator report.
No.
Thank you. Moving on now to PD. Chief,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
item 7B.
So this month, I just wanted to give you a little more detail on some of the things that are on the monthly report. One being up at the top, you'll see possession of controlled substance, evading with a vehicle. Some of y'all may have heard we did have a pursuit the other day. So we had a traffic stop that was attempting to be initiated. He fled. All of us intervened in that, and we ended up getting the gentleman stopped up in Tri-County area. Nobody was hurt. No officers were hurt. No vehicles were hurt. It was all based on running because they had drugs in the vehicle, along with a 4-year-old child. So he went away for that. So I wanted to let y'all know everything came out good on that one. Also, on our outreach efforts, I've put on here that we have our Refuse to be a Victim, CRAZE, and ASIC courses. We do that twice a year. We've got it scheduled for the first half of the year. We will be posting those dates on our Facebook page. We'll ask the city to post them on theirs. There are also some pamphlets on the table available for any of those that are interested. If you haven't taken it, please come out and take it. It's a great course. We do them in series for a reason. They flow into each other and accelerate as you go through the courses. And you get a free lunch. So, everybody's, all residents and their families are eligible. And other than that, I don't have anything else to add at this time, sir.
Chief, could you actually, one more thing, could you tell them about the mail theft?
Yes, sir. So we did have on Tonkawa Pass, we have a community mailbox that sits out close to 2252. They were broken into recently, pried open. At this point, we have no leads. I know it was a big issue just before Christmas. I know other parts in the area and other cities are right around this area. I know for a fact, as my daughter was affected, that the mail was saying a lot of mail was, the post office was saying a lot of mail was being stolen, that there were some master keys that got out to some people that shouldn't have it. That wasn't the case here. This one was flat broken into. But I know it's not a good thing, and it really inconveniences our residents because then they have to go over off 35 to get it. But we've been pretty fortunate with the limited number of incidents that we have.
Thanks, Chief. Questions, comments for the chief starting left side?
It may be far-fetched, but is there a way to put an alarm on the big boxes? I'm sure it's expensive.
Since they're not our boxes, I don't know. Most of those locations don't have electricity, so I don't think the Postal Service is going to invest into running electricity and doing all the equipment to do that. It's not anything I've ever approached them with, but I certainly will. The worst they can do is say no.
In several ways, thank you.
In several ways.
Sir? Ma'am.
Yeah, I have a comment. For something like that, you could have have something solar very easily. That's just a comment. Another thing, you said that the post office thinks it may be someone has a master key.
In another area very close to us, there's some community boxes at apartment complexes that are having a mail stolen, and they have verified that there's a key that got out to somebody that should not have it.
Kind of like an inside job.
Don't know if it's that or got stolen out of somebody's vehicle. They wouldn't elaborate.
I hope not.
So actually want to add a few things. As far as the mail thing goes, the ideas, great ideas, but you have to keep in mind that those boxes belong to the U.S. Postal Service, and they're rather protective about them. I mean, obviously not protective enough, but they're protective that if you try to retrofit them, you try to do something to them, if it's not approved, I mean, think about it. Your mailbox says approved by the U.S. Postal Service. You put mail for somebody, you put a note into somebody's box, and the mailman or woman gets a hold of it, they pull it and will charge you to get it. They're very, it's one of the strangest things is the relationship that the post office has with mailboxes and mail equipment. But so our guys, respond to a call for this, but there's not a lot that we can do because it's all about the post office. Now, I'll tell you that actually the chief and I spoke to the HOA president of one of the neighborhoods where this happened, and he is attempting to work with the post office. Now, if you recall, it took us well over a year to get a blue box outside this building, but and a congressman, exactly. But working with them, apparently there's a new design of these community boxes, because the one that was broken into, Chief and I were out there, and it, a plastic crowbar could do it. And so there's apparently some new robusted boxes. Also looking into what would it take for community, if they so desired and wanted to expend the money, to have individual boxes like some of our communities do. There's lots of information floating around about why some communities do and some communities don't, et cetera, and we're leaving that up to him at this point, but he's keeping me abreast of the situation. But it's pretty ugly. I mean, yeah, the inconvenience, but also the fact people's mail was stolen. So, I mean, you know, all it takes is imagine if that happened to you and how upset you would be about it. So, yeah, our officers obviously are keeping an eye out, and we're going to see what we can get out of the U.S. Postal Service. Perhaps they can at least give us boxes made out of some kind of metal instead of plastic, which is what they are made out of, if you didn't know. Another thing, and then moving back further, Chief talked about refuse to be a victim and all that. These pamphlets is what he's talking about. They're over on the table over there. And again, open to residents, family that don't have to live in the community, but the residents' family. So if you could have family that live in San Antonio or live in Nebraska and they're visiting, and they could come because it's all about you as a family being more secure. And then same thing with our staff. It's not just about residents. It's about our staff. It's about everybody that works with our city. The less we're victims, the more we can deal with somebody doing something stupid in our community as a group, the less apt we will be the community that somebody comes after. The more trained, the more ready we are. So we've done over 400 people through the Refuse to be a Victim, and about half as many with the other classes. And the other classes, the second two, are smaller, and we haven't been running them as long. But I strongly recommend that if you have been to one of these classes, talk it up for others. And if you haven't, I strongly recommend that you come and bring family. They're time very well spent. And you get a free lunch. Forgive me, but I'm going to add 2 cents to one last thing because I think it's really important. The very first thing he talked about was that we had a pursuit, a high-speed chase in the city that ended well for everybody. It ended well for those on the side of the law because we got the guy, and it ended well for the community because nobody was hurt. And that's no small thing. There's a lot that goes into making sure that when they're chasing somebody, that they're just not throwing caution to the wind and saying number one priority is to get this person regardless of the cost. And so talk it up and feel free to thank the PD, but I'm thanking the PD publicly for ensuring that was a safe pursuit. Thank you. Next up is Public Works, and we have the man with a name tag now, Mr. Lohman, our Deputy Public Works Director. You have the floor. But you have to know how to use the mic.
Test 1 2 1 2. Very good. I have nothing further to add to the report.
So starting right side, any questions or comments for Public Works?
No. I'm going to call out the deer carcasses removed from our roads in the last 12 months. Look at that number up there. We're down to 114. That's the lowest number I've ever seen. The highest one we ever had was 340 something, if I remember right, John. That shows some of the efforts that we're doing to mitigate this are working, whether it's the trapping or it's just making people more aware that there's deer out there and they're avoiding them on the roads. That's just a factual statement right there. So I just wanted to call that out and make sure everybody in the council noticed that, because that's a very sizable drop in the last couple of years.
Can I make a statement?
Go right ahead.
For years, it was not uncommon for me to pick up anywhere from 2 to 3 a day. And now I'm lucky if I get 5 or 6 in a month. And, it still goes up and down depending on the season and what's going on, but it is definitely making progress in the right direction.
Thank you. Anything else over here? The one thing that I want to add to Public Works is, don't forget that the end of this month is the end of oak trimming. You'll see it on the city sign a bunch. We'll talk it up as much as we can. We'll put it out on social media. But the 31st of this month is the last day for oak trimming all the way until season starts up again in July. So, the good news, it's also a month that we have dumpsters out there every weekend. So, we'll be talking all this stuff up, but please tell friends and neighbors that if they're intending to do any tree trimming, this is the last month to do it. Anything else?
No.
Thank you. Moving on now to item 7D, water. And your name is not Linda Crossland. I'm pretty sure of that. So, Mr. Parsons, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. The only thing I really want to add is this last month, we were able to get all our tank inspections done for the year. And in years past, we've had someone else do it. We actually did it ourselves this year. So we saved some money. Other than that, I have nothing to add.
Starting right side, questions, comments for water?
No thanks.
Great job with that with the tank. We appreciate that. Next up is the real Linda Crossland.
Thank you.
7E, library activity report.
Yes, I don't have a lot to add to my report, but I did put in red there, and I just wanted to reiterate a big thank you to Audi North Park and Todd Vagey for out of the blue, a wonderful donation of $1,000, and it is to go for a specific program. And we're looking at Tumble Books, which is electronic books for kiddos, but we may do something similar. Any questions?
Left side, questions?
No.
Comments?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I don't know if anybody noticed, but he was prepping me, making sure he knew the way to the podium. But, city engineer.
Good evening. You have our report. I'd be happy to address any of the issues. We were able to finish up Binzaw Lane and the Woods Garden Ridge, and so we can close out those projects. And we did receive revised plans from for the Blackwell office building that we're reviewing and trying to set up a meeting with them. Look like they've taken heart to many of the comments that have been offered, and we look to get that meeting done as well. So, be happy to answer any questions.
Starting over the right side, questions, comments for our city engineer.
Could you give us a little status on the Blackwell office building?
We met with them in November, and we went through the plans and some of the reservations we had, and they're asking for a variance on the impervious cover. The meeting, couple-hour meeting. They left the meeting, and we received, hadn't heard anything, but received revised plans on the 12th of December. And they've lowered their impervious cover. They'll still be asking for a variance, but they had addressed a number of issues that were pending, and they're also interested in exploring offsite wastewater, tying in the centralized system. So we've offered to meet and have a follow-up meeting with them, but because of the holidays, it hasn't been scheduled, but I would expect something early next week. And we'll be moving that forward.
Do you think we'll have any recommendations for us next month or the month after?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell when all this comes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
we have to go
then
to
up to P&Z,
first.
so
Yeah.
I can't really speak for
But
them.
I think it was the comments that they've taken, they took to heart many of the things we addressed. They lowered the impervious cover, came a long way from where they were. And so, yeah, I think we're going the right direction. So I'm optimistic that we'll be able to do something in the new year.
Very good. Thanks for working on it. Appreciate it.
Over here. Ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lang. Next up, City Commission's committee reports.
Guess it's on.
P&Z, no meeting since last time, but sir, do you have anything for council?
No meeting since last time, but I would like to have a do-over for my presentation last month, if it's all right, for 5 minutes. Summing up what we went over in November.
Okay, go ahead.
Presentation last month, I was involved with some other things. I don't think I presented myself as clearly as I wanted to. I wasn't satisfied when I got home, so I said, let me see if I can do it over again. Chance Sparks, representing Freeze and Nichols, came out and made a presentation to Planning and Zoning on 12 November. It was a very good presentation. We had a chance to go back and forth, a lot of questions, a lot of answers, probably for half an hour, 45 minutes. One of the things discussed was accessory buildings and guest houses, as you can imagine. We've been punting that back and forth for the last year and a half, 2 years at least. They're still prohibited in easements. They still cannot exceed the height of the main structure. And when over 300 square feet, they must be architecturally consistent with the main residence. These parameters are all for residential areas. And you can have no more than one for the purpose of a living quarters per lot. And that was some of the going back and forth about family members staying there, nannies, and other people. So we addressed that. They still have to have vegetative screening, and they're still limited on the rear or the side of the house or the lot, and they're prohibited in the front except for gazebos. I don't know if that was clear last month. In non-residential areas, the rules are a little bit more permissive, but they still have limits. The main thing we came out with was a table, or they came up with was a table addressing in the size of the lot. If it's less than 3/4 of an acre or more than 3/4 of an acre, there's some variances in what is allowed. Maximum number of accessory buildings on a lot less than 3/4 of an acre is 2. More than 3/4 of an acre is 3, and more than that is still 3. The maximum floor square footage of the area of all the accessory structures on the lot, less than 3/4 acres, is 1,000 square feet. So everything added up can't be more than 1,000 square feet. If it's more than 3/4 acre, it goes up to 3,000 square feet, okay? The maximum heights differ from 18 feet to 25 feet. The setbacks all stay the same, still has to be behind the front facade of the house or the primary residence. And the minimum setbacks on the side and back remain the same. That's about it for accessory structures. I want to apologize to Councilman Lancy. My answer last month may have came off across a little flippant. I didn't mean it to come across as flippant, to be truthful with you. But what I was trying to say is we throw out what we think City Council wants and the citizens want, and we give it out to Freeze and Nichols, and they compare it with like-sized cities and governments in their purview, if you will, and come back with something, and we hope to hit it on the nail on the head. If not, City Council will have the opportunity to come back at the planning and zoning, we can go back and do it again. Another discussion was for short-term rentals, and we start right out and say Garden Ridge is not a likely target market at this point in time, okay? As currently shown in the draft, they're prohibited in residential zones, okay? They have detailed regulations for any other place in the city. But again, Garden Ridge is not a likely target market. We went back and forth with more than 30 days is actually a rental, not short-term, a bona fide renting of the home, and not a short-term rental. And greater than 30 days brings in all the laws, et cetera, about hotel occupancy tax, et cetera. And of course, the bottom line was we can choose to regulate or not to regulate. We don't have to have it in there at all if we don't want to. As a commission, we had some questions about one of the new zones, which was community commercial district, which was formerly the B1 district. We went back and forth on that for about 10, 15 minutes. But it's really only along the FM 2252 corridor, and where FM 2252 is not adjacent to a residential area. That district will only serve a 3 to 5 mile radius of the city. And we're not expecting any big box stores because we're close to 35, close to the Forum. And even with the high school, we expect low traffic flow. So it's not really a big deal with the residential, the community commercial district, but we had some questions about it. We did talk about it, and there'll probably be a pharmacy, maybe some restaurants, and we're going back and forth whether or not we want drive-throughs. And we're caught up on that because people do like Starbucks, and it's a drive-through, so we got to figure out a way around that. The biggie was the House Bill 2439, as you can recall. And to recap, that there's no ordinance or regulation that can restrict, prohibit, or limit building product material on a building in the city. If it's allowed in a national model code from the last 3 cycles, the builders and developers can use it. We cannot establish a standard for building material or product that's more stringent than within those codes. And why'd they do this? Some cities have taken it to the extreme, and they had some absolutes where you had to use stone or brick or something like that. And the other other materials, I guess they banded together and got some legislators to say, wait a minute, that's not fair, and it really isn't fair. So they were worried about a monopoly on that kind of standpoint, and some of the legislators were ill-informed, in my opinion. Some of the regulations were unaffected anyway. There was non-building materials weren't affected. Non-building material standards weren't affected. They didn't affect color, roof pitch, screening, garage placement, nothing like that. It's just the materials themselves. Sign regulations weren't affected. Lighting regulations weren't affected, and landscape standards weren't affected. Importantly, HOAs are somewhat exempt. So HOAs can still enforce their deed restrictions, but the city cannot. Who'd have thought it? So one of the things they're thinking about trying to get cities to do is organize the HOAs proactively, map them out, and educate the HOAs why they actually have more power in this instance than the city does. The city can go so far as to give them a heads up should a builder be in their neighborhood or a remodeler come in the neighborhood and plans to use building materials that may not go with the rest of the houses in the neighborhood or be something that Garden Ridge has become accustomed to, and maybe within their deed restrictions, they can say, no, you can't use that. That's just something they're thinking about doing. The plan is the city is to transition to a incentive-based options, okay? And what I was trying to present at that time was we can use regulatory incentives to achieve a higher quality building design without violating House Bill 2439. They're coming up with a system whereby you can reward points based on a menu of preferred design and use characteristics. So if they earned enough points, they can get some landscape reductions, maybe some increased impervious cover, maybe some height bonuses, or maybe some density bonuses. But we have to be sure we don't. We have to be sure that the project can be reasonably completed without doing any of them if they chose not to. We just have to sweeten the pot, so to speak, so the builders and developers think that's the best way to go. And I think we can do that. And whatever we come up with has to be memorialized in some kind of official document. And why we're working for Garden Ridge is because when we originally did the rewrite, we had planned to relax some of the impervious cover standards because builders and developers in the past say they were way too strict, and it was the biggest hang-up people had building in Garden Ridge in the past. We had planned to bump up the density more, okay? We had planned to reduce the maximum heights. We had planned to adjust, maybe increase the setbacks, and maybe increase the landscaping requirements. So all we really had to do is go back and say, no, we're not going to do those. We're not going to reduce all that stuff. Award points for those things and get the developers and builders to come along and get back to where they would have been anyway, that's so to speak. All those things are on the table now for points. We'll wait to see what they come up with. Again, Freeze and Nichols is coming up with a menu that other cities of like size is going to use. And I think I'm looking forward to see what they come up with because it was pretty devastating at the time, but I think it is a workaround, if you will, for that bill. Thanks for your patience. Any questions?
Starting on the left side, questions, comments for P&Z?
I'm assuming we've not, given holidays and all that, we've not excuse me, had any potential meetings yet, set additional meetings with Chan?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, oh, I got one question.
Sir,
Have you heard or seen any feedback from other cities that don't like this, parts of this bill?
I don't think anybody's liked it. We haven't had any feedback. That's what counting on Freeze and Nichols to tell us, what kind of, I don't think there's been any positive feedback from the bill. But I'm sure there's been plenty of negative feedback. But again, everybody was pulling their hair out, trying to figure out how we're going to manipulate it, if you will, to keep the same standards that most of the communities want. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Maybe you're going to go a different way with it. Okay.
For the record, Councilman said you answered my question. He wasn't on mic when he said that. Thank you
You
very much.
answered my question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miller. Next up is item 9B. Corey Commission did not meet, but see if Chairman Holly has anything.
No, I have no additional information. Just some of the information that he brought up about this bill, I will want to probably try and bring that up maybe at the commission meeting to better understand what this bill, how it may affect the quarry operations.
Absolutely. A discussion between the two of you definitely is in order to see if there is any interplay. Thanks for bringing that up. Anything else?
No.
Right side, questions, comments for Corey? No. Next up is item 9C. Water Commission did not meet, was intending to meet, but came up short on the quorum. But,
That's correct, Mayor Thompson. We were scheduled to meet on the 17th of December, and at the last minute, we didn't have a quorum, so we had to cancel. Our next meeting will be January the 28th at 6 p.m. We'll have all those agenda items carry over. I'm sure there's more too to come after that, so that's all I have.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anything for Water Commission?
I recommend we not fire Mr. Valdez.
That come from.
Thanks, sir. Next is 9D, Wildlife Management Advisory Commission. The interesting thing is the only action that we have from a commission tonight is from the Wildlife Management Advisory Commission, and the chair of the commission, I didn't realize she wasn't going to be here. So she's not here. I hope she's okay. And what you do have in front of, well, you actually received this last cycle, but you didn't have enough time to be able to look through it and to see if you had any comments. The best I can say right now is that if nobody has anything, you could potentially approve it. If you have questions, we can put the questions on the record, and we can deliver those to her and to her commission and see if we can get some resolution. So what I'm referring to is item 9D11, Wildlife Management Advisory Commission, the Wildlife Management Plan. So starting on the right side, questions, comments about that, and any druthers one way or the other. Sir.
I've read it over a couple times, and I got to admit, I thought it was extremely interesting. The only thing I would do would be on the front page where it says Attachment B, I would spell herd without an A. H-E-R-D instead of H-E-A-R-D. But otherwise, I like it.
Okay. Ma'am.
No, I'm real happy with it. I've seen it a couple times already through the commission. I'm happy with it.
Sure.
I actually would like another month to, actually this will work out well. I'd like another month to continue to read through this. This is the most well-written, concise presentation I've ever seen come through to us for anything, and possibly anything around us. It's amazing how much work they put into this. So if we can, I'd like to have another month to look at it.
Okay. Sir.
I think it's exceedingly well written. As somebody that's been involved with this for 5+ years, if you just look at the number of people that have touched this document and worked on it, I was trying to do a little mental math the other day, and we're looking at, what, about 9 city council people total over the 5 years, 8 or 9 wildlife management commission people, 6 wildlife biologists, 2 of them with PhDs. There's a lot of incredibly good scientific information in this document. I could understand approving it tonight, or I could understand giving it another month to soak in, because it's got a lot of information in it.
Okay, ma'am.
Excuse me, given the absence of our chair, I don't know that it would be fair to approve it this evening. I don't know if we're harming anything. I don't believe we are. I wouldn't recommend that. So I concur with Mr. Lancy for the first and maybe last time this year. But
It's the second, that's a new record.
yes.
Well taken.
But I mean, it is incredibly well done. I just think maybe, given that we don't have a chair here to answer any potential questions, unless someone foresees harm, I'd like to move it out a month.
Okay, so I'm going to be the one to say, why are we going to delay this? If you have questions, and you want to delay it because you have questions, that makes a lot of sense. If you don't have any questions and you just want another month to read it, I'm not sure that that's a delay that's reasonable. The Wildlife Management Advisory Commission put this together in large part with former Commissioner McKinney. They put a lot of work into this. As Councilman Arvidsson said, a lot of other people have put a lot of work into this. It is very clearly acceptable to them, and they want this to be approved. If you have questions and you want to delay for the questions, that's more than reasonable. But to delay it because we want her to be here when we approve it, I'm not sure is productive. So that said, it's up to y'all, whether you approve it now or you let it sit for another month before you approve it. Can I get a motion to approve it?
I move to approve the document as presented. I have no questions.
Okay, from
Second.
place 5 with place 1 with a second. Any further discussion or questions?
I will have some questions, so I would like to postpone it.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve from 5, a motion second from place 1. Councilman Lancy, do you have any specifics?
At this time, Mayor, no, I don't.
Okay, so 2 months later, we don't have any questions. So any further comments or questions? Okay, so can I get a vote? All in favor of approving it tonight? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So I have 1, 2, 4, and 5 yes, and 3 no. Motion motion passes, and the management plan is approved. And put on the record that we sincerely appreciate the hard work and incredible detail that's in this from the entire commission, everybody that was involved in it. And again, props also to former Commissioner Jeremiah McKinney for all the work that he put into it as well. Thank you, Council. Moving on to item 9E, Garden Ridge Parks. Dr. Miller.
There we go. We have not met yet for this month. We're still recovering from the tree lighting ceremony. I don't know what else to say.
Start on the left side. Any comments or questions for Parks?
The 2020 tree lighting will be on Friday, the first Friday of December 2020. Just let that out there. Thank you.
Sir? Ma'am? Okay.
I said,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Fantastic tree lighting. Great turnout, lots of happy children and parents. So publicly thank the Parks Committee for all that you all did and all the volunteers you got to help you to make it, and the sponsors as well. Everybody came together and it made it a great event for the city. Thank you. Next up is item 9F, which is Volunteer Garden Ridge. Again, Dr. Miller.
Same thing. We haven't, or I haven't had time to recover and look into what's the next step with the Volunteer Garden Ridge activity, if you will.
Fair enough. And we have how many hours?
212.
Thank you, City Administrator. So starting right side, questions, comments, volunteer Garden Ridge. Okay, moving on, item 10, approvals, authorizations. First one is item A, discuss and take action authorizing volunteer Garden Ridge volunteers to utilize city dumpster services. Let me explain what we're doing here. Over the past, couple of years, every once in a while, somebody will mention, hey, the council has had a focus on embracing community volunteers, not just people who live inside city limits. And the money where the mouth is when you talk about the community event center, when you talk about the parks, that people that are active volunteers are able to enjoy the benefits that residents do with some of those resources. Same questions being questioned to me about the dumpsters. And so I said, well, let me put something together and talk to council. Again, the reason I'm talking to you is because this is a city resource, and so it's your prerogative on whether or not you want this city resource to be given to volunteers. What we have, if you would put the pass up, and what we're talking about is giving volunteers, and I'm going to give you some of the details here in a minute, but giving volunteers a pass that looks like this. So when they go up there, they won't be able to prove they live in Garden Ridge because they don't live in the confines of Garden Ridge. But, and this will be obviously very few numbers, but these people will be able to get a year pass to be able to use our dumpster. If you agree in principle, we're going to, before the next council meeting, you will have a short sheet of what the information we ask for the volunteer is, as well as what our procedures will be. And very briefly, what we're talking about here is that when they come in, they have to say what volunteer organization they're part of. And actually, I say when they come in, they could do this online as well. So if they, and the ones that I'm proposing, at least so far, until you have any others that you want to add, are Volunteer Garden Ridge, Parks Committee, Library, Citizens Police Academy, Alumni Association, and Coma Master Gardeners. These are all organizations that have put a lot into our community, a lot into our city, and want to be able to embrace them as being part of our community. The concept of operation on this is very simple. They can go online or they can come in. They can fill out a couple of things, just their name, where they live, and what volunteer organization they're active in. We will then send an email to that volunteer organization and say, is this one of your people? They say, yeah, they're an active volunteer. That's good enough for us, and now they get a pass. They get a pass for a year to be able to use the dumpster. No other overhead involved in this. Authorized signature can be the city secretary, city administrator, or myself, just whoever's available. We don't want to make this an onerous thing, and people that live in the city are not going to get this pass. It's just for volunteers. Open also, obviously, if you think there's another organization that I forgot out of the list that I mentioned. But the intent here tonight is to see what you think of this, and if you agree, you will have in your package, and we'll probably just put it in a consent agenda for what the form will look like, and it's really going to be it's going to be name, contact number, and what organization you're in, and then and part of that form will say, and this is the way we're going to handle it. We're going to just contact that volunteer organization. So we contact Dr. Miller for VGR, and he says, yes, this person is an active volunteer. That's good enough for us. So no other overhead involved with the staff on that. So starting over on the right side, questions, comments, feelings on this before we put together the final piece and put it in the consent agenda. Sir.
Well, I like the idea of our volunteers, whether they're inside the city or out. One question is, I'm assuming that the dumpster pass will be for from their work and not necessarily personal. You know, like if they're working on the garden out and they got some stuff they need to throw away.
Well, no, actually, again, trying to keep this as simple as possible. If they have this pass, they can go to the dumpster. Now, you know, the one thing I'll tell you that I'm pretty comfortable characterizing the people in our community that volunteer in our community, they're not the kind of people that are going to try to cheat, you know. Now, but that said, we are not saying that it has to be refuge from what they did in the city. We're just saying, you're part of our community, you can use the dumpster. I think the footprint of this will be pretty small, too. Anything else, sir? No. Ma'am?
Was this one or two individuals that came to you to mention this, or is this a group of people that would like to see this take place?
It's two different volunteer organizations that have mentioned it, and I haven't kept track, but probably 4 or 5 people, individuals.
And that's the entire organization, volunteer organization group that requested this, or just those individuals out of that group?
Well, one of the people that asked is responsible for one of the volunteer organizations, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, is this going to involve 10 people? Will we have names?
We will have names because they're going to get this, and there aren't that many people that are volunteers in our community that are outside the community, outside of the city limits. But I don't estimate that this is going to be a big footprint at all.
Okay, well, that's what I was asking. There's not that many people that volunteer that I'm aware of that live outside the city limits, so I would hope it would be minimal.
I believe it will be. I
All
can't
right,
make that.
that's all.
I can't make that commitment, but I believe it will be. Sir.
I love the idea.
Okay. Thank you.
I assume you mean the every other month dumpsters? You don't mean just coming up and using them?
No, the dumpster. Yeah, the every other month, the
Right.
dumpster. Yeah, it's funny because we went around and around on what we actually call it, and we actually do call it the dumpsters. So,
Dumpster.
yeah.
Dumpster dive, whatever. Okay.
And-
And do you feel confident, because I don't, that the people manning the dumpsters on Sundays will check that pass, because they don't check resident passes?
Well, I don't think that's, how do you answer that? Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, we're trying what we can do to get them to understand they need to check. But whether they're checking this or they're checking to make sure somebody lives in Garden Ridge, it's Mox Nix, it's the same thing, so. And actually, more detail than I intended to go into, but we'll change the color every year, so people will just be able to see it, and it's gonna have their name on it, and then depending on how, things go, I mean, we may check to make sure it's really them, but, I mean, again, this is not gonna be a lot of people. This is just an expression of, we appreciate volunteers. We have people that work in the library that don't live in our city, but they work in the library a lot. We have volunteer Garden Ridge people that, we have somebody that takes care of a park and doesn't live in
No,
Garden Ridge.
she was actually the person I was thinking
Yeah,
of, yes.
so that's the reason why we're doing it.
No, I understand, that was a
We're
question.
trying to do it, I should say.
Yeah, thanks.
And I'm afraid to even admit that I saw the attorney's hand up.
And just briefly, to follow up on a statement, Mayor, that you made and Mayor Pro Tem McCall made, this is really in exchange for the services that are provided to the city. So we do need some form of resolution. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. The city can draft it up, just saying that, the council finds that this is an exchange. It serves a public purpose and that it, supports the volunteers for all of that work and all the savings that they provide to the city via their work.
Yeah.
So just something very briefly to go with.
Absolutely, thank you. And that was my point of even bringing it to you to begin with, is that I didn't, as good of an idea as I personally thought this was, I didn't feel it was my role to dole out resources of the city without the council being the ones who approve it, so that's why. So based on what I heard, consensus is, we'll go ahead and put this in the consent agenda for basically what will be the form, and it's going to be very, very light. And then the explanation. Basically, we feel the policy is going to be short enough that we can actually put it right on the form. And so it'll just be one piece of paper. And then we'll do a resolution kind of thing that will be in the consent agenda as well for y'all to approve if you so see fit. Okay, anything else? Did I forget anything, City Administrator? No, I think you covered it. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Item 10B. Action on Ordinance 143. This is the Republic, it's BFI, DBA Republic, and some changes that we're making to the ordinance. The last council meeting, action that council took was to add $1.44 to the trash rate. That's in there, but there are 3 other things that are in there as well that I want to highlight to you. The second one is we want to make sure that our ordinance is consistent with the practice that we've been practicing, which is first 4 weeks of odd months, we have the dumpster. Right now, the ordinance doesn't reflect that, but that's what we've been doing. That's basically the deal, the contract with the Republic, and we just want to put that in writing so it's easy for everybody to see that and know what's going on. Third thing is that we had in the old ordinance that if anybody got any roll-on dumpsters, any dumpsters because they're doing work on their house or something, that Republic, and it was actually prior to Republic, but Republic has exclusive rights to that. Well, it turns out that in a general law city, that's not legal for us to require that. So that's being removed as an unlawful requirement in our city. So that's the third thing. And then the fourth thing is the holiday schedule clarification. And we're going to call that up because I want to highlight to you, this is different than what you received in the package. So it comes up later on in communication report to talk about it. But in the context of this ordinance, I want to tell you now that you may or may not have been aware that there was an issue with when was trash pickup during the holiday weeks. The first time it happened to us was on the holiday was on a Wednesday, and people were confused on when it was going to happen. Did the holiday affect the pickup? Or no, actually, it was. Let me back up. It was actually on Thanksgiving. And so what happened on Thanksgiving was, or clearly wasn't pickup on Thanksgiving. It was even in the old ordinance. It's one of the holidays that excludes trash pickup. So then everything advanced. So Thursday pickup became Friday, and Friday became Saturday. Everybody was happy. Everything was good. Well, then some of us, and I will count myself as one of the people that got confused, and said, well, the next time there's a holiday, it's Christmas. It's on a Wednesday, and so it won't affect us. And by the wording in the old ordinance, and then even the ordinance recommendation that you have in your package, we made an assumption that since Wednesday was not a trash day for us, that it really wouldn't affect us. So if your day was on Thursday, you'd get your trash picked up on Thursday, and same with Friday. Well, that's not exactly the way Republic intends it, because Republic is writing this in regard to Republic, not into just Garden Ridge. And they do have trash pickup in other places on Wednesday. So when there was a holiday on Wednesday, it advanced everybody's day one day. And so that's why there was such confusion Christmas time, where some people in some neighborhoods that had Thursday pickup had their trash out for an extra day because pickup wasn't going to happen until Friday. It was just a misunderstanding. But to clear up that misunderstanding, and of course, by the way, it also repeated itself for January 1st, for New Year's. So to clear up that confusion, that's the fourth thing, and it's up here now. You see, it says holiday schedule, the following holidays, and you could read the rest. The important thing here is the last sentence. During holiday week, collection will run one day behind after one of the listed holidays. So the example would be, if there's a holiday on Wednesday, Monday and Tuesday pickup is normal. Then the Thursday and Friday pickup in the city becomes Friday and Saturday. If the holiday's on a Monday, everybody gets pushed a day, okay? So we just wanted to make sure that was clear. We had the opportunity, since we were doing these other things with the Ordinance 143, we figured we'd put that in there as well. So all the other stuff is stuff that you already had in your package, but that last thing that we just put up there that is going away right now is the one thing that you didn't have. So that said, does anybody have any comments, questions, or would you, or I can entertain a motion to approve Ordinance 143, starting in left side?
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I wanted to offer kudos to the front office staff for absorbing the brunt of many calls from both within and without the city for the frustration that everybody, or most of the people, I think, expressed about where's the trash pickup. And the fact that it's my understanding that the company did not respond to inquiries until after 4 in the afternoon. That didn't make it any easier, but thank you very much for everything you guys did to not take away certain people's mailboxes and things like that, and pass keys and all. Thank you. I also, unfortunately, I have a number of grammatical and structural remarks for the ordinance. They're not substantive, in my opinion, but if it's okay to be consistent so that we can get this over with, I'd like to go ahead and go through it.
And if I can jump in, I want to explain.
Sure.
This Councilwoman Bauer has been kind enough to go through, and she has found some grammatical and some errors, edits. The choices are that we can go through these, which you should. My feeling is, we can't just say, we'll fix it, promise. You as the council have to know what you're approving. We talked about this, and I believe that we can go through this pretty quickly. But before we do it, I want to make sure that there's no other barrier to it, because if there's other barriers, then we would be spending that time for naught. So hold your thought for just a minute, and let's go through and see if there's anybody else that has any substantial issue with the ordinance before we, because my goal here is that if you don't, and if you like the ordinance and you want to approve it, we'll go through these edits really quickly, and then you'll have the opportunity to approve it, and we'll be done with this once and for all. So that said, please hold that thought. Sure. And come to the next. On mic, please.
I have no concerns with the ordinance.
Okay. Sir.
I have nothing.
Ma'am.
I have one comment, and that is where it says holiday schedule, the last sentence, the most important one. During the holiday week, collection will run 1 day behind after the listed holiday. That almost implies that the holiday itself, of course, you don't pick up on the holiday, but the other ones will get set forward a day. And like the people on Wednesday, they wouldn't get theirs picked up at all.
We
You know,
don't have
I don't
Wednesday
follow
pickup.
you, I'm sorry.
Well, it doesn't.
We don't have pickup in the city on Wednesday.
I understand.
And
Oh, we don't have pickup in our,
no, sir.
oh, never mind.
But the reason things got confused is because Republic does
Okay.
pick up other cities on
Oh,
Wednesday.
okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Okay. So that said, it sounds like y'all are going to be okay with this. So that said, go back to Councilwoman Bauer, and we'll expeditiously go through these changes, so then we can see if y'all would like to approve it. Go ahead, ma'am.
I promise. Third whereas, page 1, best interest, I don't believe needs to be hyphenated unless it's a legal term, which I couldn't determine that it was. To be in the best interest, I don't believe that needs to be hyphenated.
Got it.
Bottom paragraph, contract should be, the right and privilege granted in this contract should be initial cap C. And I had a question, but it's been answered about the recycling. Page 2, federal laws, initial cap federal, because that's consistent with what we've done in the rest of the document. Section 3, hazardous waste is initial cap, but in this definition, it is not. So it needs to be consistent. I'm assuming that Ms. Spencer and Ms. Balby can follow, just with initial upper and lower. Second definition, bulky waste, comma, after furniture, because it's a list. I'm sorry, I meant to go back up to bags. Bags, to be consistent, we need to spell out 35 and then parens the numbers 35, and that's going to occur in a number of places.
Okay, go ahead.
Bundle means tree, shrub, comma. Same thing in that sentence about 35, spell out the numbers. Once again, let's see. Same thing on the 20 and the 35, and the 35 under container.
Got it.
20 under dead animals. Disposal site, incinerators, comma, it's a list. Garbage, 20, spell it out. Page 3, that's where we show it as uppercase federal, which should be fine. Recyclable material requires a period after the parens. Residential refuge, initial cap at the end of that line, residential unit, to be consistent. Dropping down to rubbish, the last line, waste, comma, or stable matter. Same thing under stable matter, poultry, comma, or livestock. Under hold harmless, servants, comma, and employees, it's about the 5th or 6th line. And under expenses, comma, and attorney's fees, comma. Next page, top of 4, coverages is not possessive, it's plural, no apostrophe. If you see the cover referencing insurance. Under equipment, the bottom paragraph, I believe that should read performance of this franchise, comma, rather than shall, comma. If you read it, if you'd like to check that sentence.
I'm missing you on there. Where are you?
Okay, under D, equipment, the last paragraph, the sentence reads, "All equipment, comma, including motor vehicles and trucks necessary for the performance of this franchise." I believe the comma should follow franchise, and then read, "shall be in good condition and repair."
Got it.
Just moving the comma.
Got it.
Page 5, I believe under residential service, Tuesday or Tuesday and Friday, I believe we should put upon, depending upon location of residence in there. Depending location of residence. Next paragraph, same thing, spell out the pounds and parens, and the numerals and the words. Also, just technically speaking, I don't know, this is a big issue, but you're not supposed to hyphenate at the end of a line. So if you want to run it out and run yard-grown refuse to one line, that's your choice. Last sentence of that paragraph, the second paragraph, if the same is not placed, it should be placed in garbage cans, not place. Pickup gets inconsistent on the next paragraph. In this case, recycling pickup is not hyphenated. Next paragraph, contractor will provide a contractor, initial cap, contractor-owned, 18-gallon, same deal, spell it out. And then, because to be consistent, then in the last paragraph, second to last paragraph, in the event that a resident may desire pickup of, we're not consistent on the pickup. We've got hyphens here and there.
Which way should it be?
I don't believe it should be hyphenated.
So pick up one word. So we'll do a global and
Yeah,
so if you
yeah,
have any
do a
more like
search.
that, you
Yeah.
don't even have to point it out.
Right, I
We'll do it.
understand. Okay, okay, under B, the last paragraph, each commercial establishment should be singular, I believe.
Yes.
This goes back to, and then that same line, ensuring rather than ensuring that the size of the container. And then I believe the last line should say to ensure that no, quote, overflow situations occur, as opposed to ensure.
Okay.
Page 6, top, okay, now I made a mistake. This one where we say, this is where it's, you guys decide where it's inconsistent about pickups. Because the top line there, hand pickups, it's, once again, just whatever you decide.
We'll take care of it.
Right. Second, or paragraph C, brush, comma, and debris, it's a list. I believe the line, third line up, builder / contractor, if contractors plural, I believe that should be builders / contractors, because could be builders or contractors, so I believe they're both both plural. Dead animals, this is where I actually have a question, where under D2, it says will provide removal of dead animals. Does that include deer? Ordinarily not, right?
I don't know. Yes, please.
Since you have to test them.
So under most circumstances, the city picks up dead animals as a courtesy to residents. They're actually the homeowner's responsibility to take care of, but we have the equipment, we have the dumpster to put them in, and it makes it much, much easier for residents to deal with. If you were to put something in your trash, it's not against the law.
But if somebody wants to put, of course, it's a weight on deer, but my point is, this sounds like it's allowing them to go pick up deer, and do we want that because of the testing that we need to do? That's my question.
Oh, deer specifically?
Yeah, deer, not animals, deer.
Well, to test deer, you have to do it within a specific amount
Right.
of time.
Right.
And sometimes we don't know how long that deer has been deceased, so we are unable to test it.
Correct, ma'am. It's got to be pretty fresh.
Yeah, it has to be very fresh.
Most often the case will be that it's a immobile deer, and by law, we can put it
And-
down. We put it down, we know now.
Yeah, I really don't think it's going to be an issue because most people aren't going to be able to lift and put a 100-pound animal in their trash can.
Right, but it says the contractor will provide removal. That's my thing, in other words.
To my knowledge, we have never asked the garbage contractor to remove a dead animal.
Okay.
The city, when we're notified, we will
Right,
go
I
pick
know
it
you
up.
guys go get it,
And
so.
we do have a special dumpster that only carcasses are placed in, and the garbage contractor will empty that
Right.
Yeah.
dumpster for us.
Okay, just a question.
I
go
don't
ahead.
see any harm in leaving that in there in case we were to run into some situation.
If
where
council's
we
okay,
needed
we'll leave it in there.
Yeah, fine.
Go ahead.
Okay, next paragraph, I would recommend that the sentence 3, D3, read, "Contractor shall provide to all city facilities free of charge regularly," in other words, insert that phrase there between provide and regularly, and then "to avoid unhealthy or unsightly accumulation, period."
Okay?
Paragraph 4, contractor, this is where we get into the term roll-off, and it is hyphenated. And so to be consistent, it's not in the chart at the end, but I'll point that out at the end.
We'll just, if
Okay.
it's a roll-off like that, we'll do a global and make
Okay,
sure every
do a-
roll-off says.
do a search, okay.
Roll dash off.
Okay, second, third, comma, fourth, the third line down. I believe the last sentence is fairly wordy, and I would recommend, in 4, I would recommend that you put a period after "the city shall call for polls when needed during each period," initial cap there, and then there will not be a charge for the polls, and the container will simultaneously be replaced. You have a misplaced modifier, as necessary, and then that's just a restructuring. Top of 7, second line, you've got, I'm sorry, wait a minute a second. I would recommend the sentence read 7, "In the event the contractor shall fail to make any garbage pickup or collection, comma, then the city," no, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. "In the event the contractor shall fail to make any garbage pickup or collection for any reason after being notified." In other words, change that phrase, and you don't need a semicolon. If that's not clear, just however you want to word it.
Got it. I got it.
Okay, holiday, to be consistent, put a numeral in parens after 1 day, and again, the next line, 1 day. Section 6A, commercial, comma, and industrial, it's a list. Page 8, right smack in the middle of B, regulatory entity, comma, or landfill operator, it's a list. Getting there. Page 9, section 10A, that should be 48 rather than 4th-8. And I would recommend that in A, the third paragraph, the last line, "The city and contractor agree that the contractor shall not be responsible," but that to be consistent with the way it is in paragraph 2.
Okay?
Page 10, question, natural disaster defined as a storm, flood, or tornado, where we referenced earthquake earlier. Why do we not include earthquake? Or is that just a legal thing?
No idea. Is there any reason why we can't put it there, too?
Under A, the third paragraph under A on 10 says city, blah, 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 damages caused by fire, flood, earthquake, or act of God. This includes storm, excludes earthquake, and it references floods later. So I think earthquake is the missing piece.
No legal reason why it can't be the same.
Okay, we'll add it.
Okay. I think under 11, violation of ordinance, I think it's a little, I understand the meaning, but I think it needs a phrase in there when it talks about each offense continues and shall be a separate offense. Just my opinion, maybe clarify that each day, it's not, each day is a separate offense. I don't know that that's clear, but if it is to everyone else, that's fine. Jumping to page 12.
Wait a minute. So, Attorney, do you follow? Do we need to say, okay? Okay?
Believe it or not, page 12, last page, Exhibit A, dwelling, I don't believe needs a colon after it. We don't have that.
Push your button on.
I'm sorry. You want me to start over, Brian?
No, go ahead.
Colon after dwelling, I don't believe is necessary. And one more time, this is where pickup and roll-off both appear. Twice here, it's inconsistent. So when we do our search,
Absolutely.
that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for finding all that. It's important that we make this clean as we can. For the record, because there was a rate change in this is the biggest reason why I didn't want to delay this another month. That was a lot to go through, and you know that that's not standard for us to go through that many edits. But to be able to get this thing approved, if you so desire, and to be able to move forward with this and get the rates moving and get everything happening, thought it would be smart to go ahead and go through these edits. But again, that's not something we'll do normally. Normally, if we have that many edits, we're going to just defer it to the next month. But thank you for doing that.
Sure, and normally I can get them to the people prior to the meeting as well.
Thank you. Okay, so so what we're now saying is looking for a motion to approve ordinance 143 with the edits that you just had, and obviously they're on the record as well. They've been recorded, and I've written them down, and I know that City Secretary's written them down with those edits and with the changes that I have already highlighted to you. Questions, comments, or can I get a motion? Right side, anything? Sir, anything?
You have an incredible ability, and I'm not being facetious about that. That is an incredible ability that you have. Most of us would not have caught that. My wife is excellent at this. Shelby's wife was excellent at it, and I don't think they would have found anything like that. So thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Anything?
I move we approve ordinance 143-012-020 as written with the edits provided by Councilwoman Bauer.
And also, if I may, remember also the edit that we put up there, which is not in your package, but we put up there.
Okay, and that edit as well.
Okay, great. So I have a motion to approve with the edits, the one that we put up there, as well as all of the corrections and edits that Councilwoman Bauer graciously went through for us. Can I get a second?
Second.
Place two with a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you all very much for, that took a little bit of time, but it's an important ordinance, and now we're clear with that. Okay, next up is item 10C, Garden Ridge Market Days. Councilwoman Swint, you have the floor.
The December market went very well. We probably had about 1,200 customers come through. Vendors very happy. We still have several of them that are selling out. Overall, real happy with how it went. Kim, our market manager, is busy planning January, and it looks like it's going to be another full market. If you have any questions about the December market, happy to answer them. If not, Nancy and I put together some market governance guidelines that you guys should have got in your packet.
So first of all, any questions for Councilwoman Swint on item 1, the activity update? Starting right side, any questions?
I just got a comment. I couldn't believe it. It was awesome.
I have nothing to say. I agree with you.
It was good.
Ma'am? Okay. And now, item 2, take action on market governance guidelines. I'll hand the floor back over to Councilwoman Swint for this.
I don't know that we need to go over these point by point. Again, if anybody has any questions, any areas that we should focus on, this is just a first stab at things from Nancy and myself.
Okay. Starting over on the, I can't remember where I started last. Right side, over on the right side, questions, comments for Councilwoman Swint on the market governance guidelines.
Yeah, I looked at it, and I like to see all the, it looked like a pretty good outline. One thing that kind of concerned me, well, let me ask you, did this go past the attorney?
No.
But should it? See, and the reason why I asked that is, like I was reading, the market manager will avoid activities that involve a high degree of risk and potential liability exposure to the city. And I'm thinking, each of us have a different idea of what that could be. And I was wondering if maybe it should have a little bit more, be a little more concise, and I personally would like to have it run past our city attorney to give it a little blessing at least. Either that or Kay.
Okay, what I'm going to do is go through everybody and then turn it over to city administrator and the attorney for any answers, for any questions you have. Anything else, sir? Anything to add, ma'am? Sir?
One quick question. Do the vendors sign a little contract when they do this?
Yeah, they have an application form that it has a contract and an indemnification clause as well that they sign off, or indemnification form that they sign off as well on.
Okay, so there's some verbiage about her hold harmless to the city?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, very good, very good.
Sure.
I think it's a great first shot at an outline.
Try that again?
I think it's a great first shot at an outline. I would be curious to see what the attorney says, though.
Fair enough. Ma'am?
Yeah, I do. I agree. I think it's a great start. Personally, I concur with John that I think since it's been made, clear to us that the attorney hasn't looked at it yet per se. I have concerns, because I know we talked about fundraising organizations in previous meetings. I'd kind of like that addressed a little more specifically, because no reflection on Kim or Ms. Swen or anything else as far as who can determine the fundraising. And I know we're trying to isolate this as like if you will, almost like a committee, not a commission, of course. And I know here on question where it says the market manager will either arrange payments for goods or so on, or pay directly. Would Kim be the only one, this is a question, authorized to make purchases, or is it potential that maybe someone else would make the purchases, or do we have that finalized
Kim is the only one that's purchased anything for them.
so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't imagine a situation where anybody other than Kim or staff would.
Okay. On the financial, under the first item, financial documentation, including PayPal, turned over to the city's finance, I'd like to specify maybe there that there's a deadline, and I think we'd need to work with Karen on that as far as what's the best for her, because the market is going to occur roughly the middle of the month sorry, I should speak over here, is going to occur roughly the middle of the month, but is there a deadline that works best for Karen for her documentation for the upcoming, say, council, which is at that point only 2 weeks away,
We
potentially?
probably could, we covered that down in record keeping where we're having
Right.
her give everything
5
over
days.
5 days
Right.
following the conclusion
Right.
of the market. I mean, Karen, does that work for you? I mean, should we add that back up at the top?
Maybe Karen needs to think about it.
Okay. The first time I saw this was just the other day, and personally, I would like to have a little bit of time to go through it and
Could
get
you
a
move that a
more
little bit
detail.
closer to your voice? There you go. Much better.
Okay. I just saw this for the first time the other day, and I really would like to have a little more time to go through it. Maybe we could combine like the financial and the record keeping stuff together. And there's some things that just aren't detailed enough for me that I think are a little vague, like maintain an inventory list, a list of what? That could be more detailed. The expenditure is about the $300. Okay, so a $300 expenditure has to be approved. So does that mean someone could do 4 expenditures of $299 and it would fly right through? So do we need to say $300 but no more than $600 per market, or something that is just a little more teeth in it, I think.
Okay, well, it's back.
So I would ask that we maybe have until the next council meeting to review it, send it over to the attorney and let them look at it, and then bring it back to you guys.
Sure.
If that works.
Okay, so it's just kind of roundabout, but you still have the floor.
Yeah, just, it actually goes back to, I had a question about inventory. If, this is a technical question, if the market ends up owning tables and chairs, for example, and a table and chair collapse, a marketplace table and chair collapse and someone gets hurt, is that covered under our city liability? I mean, so that we'd still have the umbrella there. Things like that that I worry about, and things like the, again, to what was pointed out earlier, the high degree of risk and potential liability. I like that maybe a little more defined, because I know, again, subjects have come up in the past about maybe that's not something we want to entertain in our city property. So I think that's kind of, and I'm sorry, under staffing, Public Works or Water Department staff, I like that idea, will work a maximum of 4 hours, and that they will be notified as well of sign, place, and schedule and expectations. But do we have a ceiling on how many Public Works people? Because I know we're trying to, especially when it occurs on a weekend, we're trying to avoid
We've always
overtime.
only had one. I mean, we can write down one, but we've only had
Well,
one.
I think in the beginning we had more, but
Well,
maybe not. Maybe not, sorry, okay. Yeah, I think maybe just if we, in other words, I think I concur with everybody else, if we sort of tighten it up and ask Cynthia to review it from that. I mean, I like the concept of having, as we talked about last month, guidelines. And I worry too that if we have a report that goes to Karen, which is necessary since it's essentially city money, and I do like your idea about, you know, potentially using it for other city projects. I just worry that, once again, we don't want to add to the staff too much, the internal staff, like ladies up front or city secretaries or assistant city secretaries. If we can get as much of the employees involved. And I don't know how that's going to work, but.
Well, I mean, can you be more specific about that? I mean, Karen's the one that has to do the finances. I don't have any
No, but I
access to
mean, I
that.
don't know, for example, I've not been able to come to the last couple, so I don't know who's physically, aside from Public Works, who's physically taking the signage outside, and they have to come inside to get it, so are they interrupting what's going on?
Just Public Works. There's just one person from Public Works that's doing all
Comes
of
and
that.
gets it all?
Yeah, there's no staff. Kat hasn't been there for a while.
Yeah, I knew
So
she
it's
had.
just- yeah.
Okay, that'd be my only concern, just so we don't, we just, because we are trying, especially this experiment coming up in January, which hopefully will work, and in August.
Just one other statement is that we do have to keep Kat a little bit involved in it because she is actually the point person for PayPal. Because I cannot be the point person for PayPal and also reconcile the PayPal. We've got to have some separations of duties there. So we have to keep her in just a little bit.
Okay.
Just a little.
Aside from just my niddly comments and everything like that, I appreciate everything that's been done, and I think if Ms. Kane and Mr. Vino can go ahead and, you know, finalize it or touch it up or bring it back to us. I don't think it shouldn't impact January.
No,
Yeah, okay. That'd be my recommendation.
Okay, go to city administrator, because some of this stuff kind of comes back to you, some of the questions and comments that council's made.
I appreciate everybody's comments, and I think that it is that we do need to go back through this, Councilmember Swint, and tighten this up. I also think that perhaps in here, you know, as time has gone on and the other different things that are wanting to come to the market, I think perhaps we need to spell out what types of vendors we're going to allow and what we're not.
We've got all of that on the vendor application form.
But I think that in the guidelines, because this is going to be the guideline that the market manager is going to be able to fall back on, staff, council, and this be a running document of what council has approved for the market. Also, in our review, I know that there was kind of some last minute discussion about fees perhaps being increased for the community center.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we need to, in this guideline, take that into consideration and specify what fees, and this be our for lack of a better term, this be the policy or the Bible for the market manager and for the governance committee, the council and staff to answer any questions and understand what is allowed and what is not allowed. But I do think we do need to, it does need to be looked at further. And I'm open to any questions that anybody, and any other further suggestions. And yes, it does need to go to the city attorney after this, as we refine this and make this.
Attorney, you obviously will have plenty of opportunity to have input, but for the purposes of this discussion right now, do you have anything to add? And again, you can take time to look at this. You don't have to have any substantial comments on this, but overall, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think overall, my one concern would be, that one particular, avoid activities. And while I can clearly see that while we all have a good concept of what that means, and the market manager has a concept of what that means, if this is going to be something that the city does use as Ms. Kane said, as the Bible or as the reference to reference people to, kind of detailing that out is probably a good idea, because while there again, all those persons in charge will know, it's really important that, as this goes forward to the public, that the public can easily understand it as well, to avoid the pitchforks on City Hall, if somebody should get denied because it's an activity that doesn't fall within the guidelines.
Fair enough. Okay. Go ahead.
I just have one other question. I do not want to introduce negativity, but is it possible that Kim could give us feedback on things like that didn't work? I mean, I personally am going to be proposing that for our community center, because obviously, anyone's promoting an item, there are people who are going to say no for whatever reason, and it'd be interesting to me, I think, to know if a vendor has a bad experience, to be fair,
Sure.
that we know about that as well.
Sure.
Or they come to it and they want to do it, but they won't because of such and such. That type of feedback, I
Sure.
think that helps us grow.
Anything else? Going back this way, anything else? No. Okay. So based on all that, I'm going to see, this was up for taking action on it. The action can be to do further review, staff review, and legal review. And so through consensus, council, is that what you want?
Yes.
Anybody have any issue with that? Okay, so consensus is this is going to go back to staff, and we'll revisit this next month. All right. Councilwoman Swin, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, moving on to item number 11, updates, city administrator reports. Ma'am.
The last of the CIP remaining fund project has been completed. Unfortunately, at this time, I have not received the pay request, so we have not been able to pay that bill, but the project is completed. Surely by our February council meeting, we will have paid the contractor that payment and be complete. That's all I had to report.
Well, you have another item there.
Yes. Chief Eberhardt is going to provide an update on the security upgrades at Paul Davis Park.
Thank you. Yes, so you all approved a couple of months ago, 2 months ago, I believe it was, for the upgrades to the park. The locks have been done on the bathrooms. Public Works has now done the trenching and pole placements for me, and so the cables are being run. I was actually out there today and got the internet service put into the building. So Monday, the camera contractor should be coming out and start the install. So as of Monday, we should start installing all the actual cameras that will go in at the park, which should be the last step, which with what went in today with the modem, when he installs those, he'll automatically be able to program that and get it all set up so that our patrol officers will have access to those cameras from their patrol cars on their laptops anytime they need to look at anything going on in the park.
That's great. Starting the right side, questions or comments for city administrator or the chief on these topics?
Will those cameras have a certain amount of memory on it to keep for 24, 48 hours in case something happens?
Those cameras are all fed into an NVR. So
Okay.
yeah, the NVR, I don't remember off the top of my head, I believe it was 4 or 6 terabytes of storage. So we should have a fairly decent number of
Months,
days
yeah.
storage. I don't know for sure. Depends on how we're going to set them up, on whether we do motion detection in certain areas or constant record. That'll make a big difference in how much we're able to store.
Anything else? Ma'am?
Seems like you got it done really in fast time. I think that's great.
Thank you. Yes, everybody's working together. So it's working out very well.
Good.
Yes, thanks a lot, Chief. And more to follow as it becomes implemented. 11B, Mayor's Projects Communication Report. One of my things was to tell you about a lot of people contacting not only the front office, but me via text and emails and phone calls on that Christmas week, wanting to know why their trash wasn't being picked up. But I think we've got that all straightened out. And Mr. Armstrong, Tom Armstrong from Republic was very helpful with that as well. And with this ordinance and with some more discussion about it, hopefully we can get this the word out enough that people will understand how this works. Keep in mind, one thing is that the old way was that if your service fell on a holiday, you just lost that service until the next time you had service. And the Republic has changed that to where you still will have the twice-a-week service, which I think is helpful for us. Another one is, just to let you know, because actually you were disparaged as well as I, on social media, because somebody said it was one of the standard forum complaining about something, and the person wrote that they had written to the mayor and to council and they received no response. 2 days later, I received that person's note that they had referred to. That's when they sent it, was 2 days later. I wrote back to that person and talked to them about their issue, as well as implored them to consider not getting all their information off of social media, because case in point, if somebody read what they wrote, they would assume that the council and the mayor don't care about what they say. And nothing could be further from the truth. We do care, and we will talk to people when they have questions. We will answer people when they write to us, but we can't guess what they're going to say 2 days ahead of time. Okay, that was editorial. I did not write that in the letter, that part. But, and then I also offered if that person would like to be involved more, I would connect them to some volunteer opportunities in the city. I have yet to hear back from that person. Okay, moving on to item 11B2, citizen contact. We had an issue, and this is something that has been going on for years. If you're familiar with Garden Ridge Drive and the creek that goes underneath Garden Ridge Drive, there's private property on either side, but we own the land there, we own the creek land as well. And every so often that can get a little bit congested and also can kind of weed over. And because there were a lot of other things going on, it fell off Public Works radar for a few weeks. And resident, it was holiday time, and they were getting ready to have a party, and they were concerned that this was, it not only doesn't look good, but it can be a hazard for critters running around in the tall grass, so to speak. And so contacted Public Works, and that day, the day they were contacted, they went out there, took care of it. Homeowner, the resident was very, very appreciative that happened. So Public Works, thank you for the immediate response on that. We also have had, in a neighborhood, we had a homeowners association president contact us, issue where some people were complaining about some vehicles in a driveway. Come to find out that they were complying with all the law. There's some issues of whether or not a vehicle is registered as a junk vehicle, but in this case, they were clearly not junk vehicles. They were actually race cars. So what we did was we put together all the information, all the factual information for this homeowner association, gave it to them so then they could decide whether they were going to act any further. But we explained to them and showed them chapter and verse that the city had no ability to infringe on this person's ability to store these vehicles where they were on the surface in the location that they were doing it. but that was all about the PD doing the research and arming us with state law and all of the information. So that was another quick response by staff that played out well. The homeowner association was very appreciative, thanked me multiple times for the PD and for our staff responding and giving them the information they needed, so then they could go to the people that were having an issue with this and explain to them that was just the way it was. So thank you, PD. And the last one is something that helps sometimes, and so I encourage, I know there are some people in the city that think that we don't want to hear about any problems that they're having or issues that they see. Nothing could be further from the truth, because sometimes it plays out that those issues fall in line with something that we're working on, and it gives us, in effect, more ammo when we're explaining to somebody that there's an outside agency. In this case, it's TxDOT. And I'll talk more about some things with TxDOT, but some people came to me and told me that about some issues with 3009 Shanethal, that intersection. We already know that what we call Shanethal Loop is an issue of coming out of there, and I'll address that in a minute. But even more so, found out, and then I actually saw something to the effect of somebody turning left on the Shanethal off of 3009 and turning on the inside of the stop sign. So think about that for a second. There's a stop sign that sticks out because that's where the stop line is, and somebody turning left on the Shanethal turned inside the stop sign, which means they turned right into the oncoming traffic. And one of the people that came to me was the person that was looking at this car coming right at him. I've talked to TxDOT about that, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But my point of that, and then also some issues with turning from 2252 onto Bat Cave at night. I had two people come and tell me that they have a real problem with that. I'm mentioning this to tell you that if you get these kind of things, please pass them on, because then when I sit down with TxDOT or the county or whomever, I have the opportunity to say that it's not just my notion of an issue, but it's people that are coming to us and saying there's an issue, and it's important that they know that. So that's citizen contact. And next, move on to 11B3, which is city facility update. Ms. Spencer.
So I hope you've all had the chance to look at the website and the new portal that we have. It looks a little different, but it blends well. We're still working on, I guess, figuring everything out, and there are some duplicates on there because when they merged everything, like there's, I think for last month, like 4 city council meetings, because one's the agenda, one's the packet, one's the minutes, and one's the video. So we're working on reconciling all of those, as well as finishing up with the commission templates, so that all of the commission agendas and packets and the videos will all be there, but right now they're not being created physically through Civic Clerk. They're just being uploaded as PDFs. So they're still available. We just are not able to create them through the portal yet, but we are close. If y'all have any questions or any suggestions that you think might help, feel free to let me know anytime. Might look a little confusing right now because it's missing some wording. So there's supposed to be some headings on the boxes that are missing. I'm waiting to hear back about that. So the top area is supposed to be upcoming meetings, and then there's a bottom area that is future meetings. Those words aren't there. So it just says the meetings, and we're working on getting that fixed, just in case anyone was wondering why it looks like there's a large blank space where there should be words. It'll happen. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Left side, questions, comments on the city facility update that Ms. Spencer gave us?
No, thank you.
Sir?
Nothing.
Ma'am. Yeah, some few growing pains, and what I'll tell you is behind the scenes, staff, all the folks up front, and particularly the two that are sitting over there, but the folks up front have been very patient with some of the growing pains on some of the things that we're going through. You know, we're pushing forward with putting stuff online and working. You heard about e-billing and a lot of these other things, and the bottom line is sometimes this can become frustrating with some of these contractors. And I will tell you that you'd be proud of how much patience everybody in the front office is exercising with some of these contractors, so I appreciate that. And thank you for keeping out for us. All right, next up is 11B4, which is TxDOT coordination. So I referred to what some of the things that some people had talked to me about, but so I want to go down the list. One of the things is speed limit on 3009. The 3009 speed limit is, according to TxDOT, been submitted, and they expect it to be approved, so much so that they ordered the signs, and they suggested to me that we put it in our ordinance. And I said, yeah, no. It's not going in the ordinance until we actually have in writing, or we see you put the signs up. We're not going to approve an ordinance, and I'm going to talk about that ordinance here in a few minutes anyway, but we're not going to do that until we know for a fact. So that should be happening really soon. Remember, that means that it will no longer be a 55 and then a 60. When it goes up to where it does go up to now 55, it'll go up to 50, and it'll stay 50 all the way through the city. So we're waiting on that. And let me just say right now that I'm meeting with them tomorrow here. This will be the third time we've met on some of these topics. And so obviously top of the list for me is, okay, what's the story with the speed limit? Did you get the approval yet? So this is a long time coming. Next item is 3009 and Chainthal. They have ordered the no left turn sign. Remember, we've been talking about this for a year at least, how dangerous it is, and the fact that none of our city employees acting on official business will even exit from Chainthal Loop on the closest part of Chainthal Loop, which is to us. So the first measure of trying to do something about this is to make no left turn out of that area. People will only be able to turn right. Remember, this is a strange one because it's a county road going on to a Texas road in our city, and so we all had to get together on this. But what TxDOT told me 2 weeks ago, before the holidays, was that the county agreed, and that TxDOT has ordered the no left turn sign. But I also told them that we have an issue with the other side of the road, which is where I described people turning inside the stop sign, and the fact that because the roads are the way they are, when there's a place that's not driven very much, it gets dirty, and then the places that are driven a lot, if there's lines, they get worn down. And the stop line is really hard to see, and then you throw some debris as it's being sputtered around there, and now you can't see the stop line at all. So if you're unfamiliar, it's understandable that you maybe won't turn inside that stop sign, but you probably will at least cut off the left of the two lanes coming out of Chainthal proper onto 3009. I asked them to look at repainting those, and I'll find out tomorrow what they're, because they haven't done it yet, so I'm going to find out tomorrow. I'll poke them in the chest and go, what's going on with that? Next one is 2252 in Batcave. This was interesting because it happened to me, or I noticed it one night driving on 2252 turning on to Batcave. That typically, and if you go out there right now, I guarantee that at least half the people will not stop at the stop line on Batcave to turn left or right onto 2252. What they'll do is they'll go beyond it. If you think about it, there's a hill there, and they'll go up above it. And, you know, I've watched full car lengths in front of that stop line. Not all that bad until you have somebody that's turning left onto Batcave from 2252, and they have to go around that car that's kind of sticking into 2252 at that point. But now it becomes exacerbated when it's dark, because if you've ever done this, when you turn left onto the Batcave from 2252 in the dark, it is completely undefined, the black hole that's at your left, and as you turn left, it becomes to your right. And there's a bit of a cliff, not initially, but just as you go about another 10 yards, there's a little bit of a cliff that if you didn't know where that line was, you could just drive off of it. And I had somebody come in the coffee and actually tell me that they felt like they almost drove off of it. And it was really interesting to me because I noticed that only a couple days prior. Now, I'm well familiar with the intersection, but I thought, wow, I never thought about that. That's kind of dangerous. So I've talked to TxDOT about it. Now, I know that they know that we know that they're going to put a light there. But since it's been extended for a year, it's not going to happen for 2 years. So to say that this is a problem, but we're not going to do about it because we're going to fix it in 2 years isn't an acceptable answer. So I told them that, and I said, we need to do something about this. Whether it's, first of all, I think they need to paint some lines, some reflective lines, both defining the entrance and exit. And I actually asked them, by the way, is this your intersection or is it county's? And they said it's theirs. So tomorrow, I'm hoping they come in with an answer on what they're going to do about that as well. Then the last one that I asked them about, and I haven't gotten an answer, and I'm going to poke them in the chest about this one, is the wonderful surface work that they did on 3009 if you come out of here and turn right. Now, I think I told you that the day they did that, I called him and said, I thought you were going to tell us when you were going to do work in our city. And he apologized and said, yeah, you're right, I did, and I won't do that again. I asked him what they were doing, and he said they were doing some surface work. Well, the surface work they did has made the road worse than it was before they did the surface work. And I asked him 2 weeks ago, have you seen it? He said no. I'm talking about our representative, our regional representative. He said no, but he said he would go look at it. So when he's sitting in my office tomorrow afternoon, if he says no, then we're all going to pile in a car and go look at it. But it's pretty embarrassing. It looks bad. It's rough. I see, you know, I have a little bit of knowledge about civil engineering and road surfaces, and I can see no valid reason for them to have done what they did unless they were doing that to fill ruts and holes, and then they were going to go back over it, which he told me they had no plans to go back over it. So we'll see. But that's all. I'm going to try to get some answers on the 3 o'clock. I think it's 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So that's an update on TxDOT 3009, 2252, some intersections that I believe are dangerous intersections and somebody could get hurt at, as well as a speed limit. And lastly, to just tell you that if you get input, complaints, comments about these kind of things, please tell me, because that's just more that I can give to them and say, hey, there's even more people that are talking about this to our elected officials. Okay. Questions, comments on any of that, starting left side? Sir, sir, ma'am, sir. Okay. Okay, the last one is 11B5. This is ordinance 22. Notice it's not in for action. So the beginning of this was the issue with over by the quarry, what Councilman Lanzi brought to us. That has been, all of us have agreed that we're going to go forward with that, and we're going to put in ordinance 22. But then we also had the issue that we had some edits, and unlike what we did with the ordinance tonight, we said we'd go ahead and get the edits in and give it to y'all. The issue is that this ordinance 22 involves penalties, it involves traffic law, and involves us having to put it in the paper. And to put it in the paper, depending on content and length and everything in, it could be $300 to $400. But in the meantime, we have two other things that we believe within the next 30 days are going to go into that ordinance. One is what I just told you about, speed limit. If they tell me tomorrow that the speed limit is going to change next week, then we need to get that in the ordinance, because we can't change the ordinance. We can't fine people until it's in the ordinance that council has said, yes, the speed limit is that speed limit in our city, et cetera, et cetera. We have to ratify that, and we have to put it in the paper. The other one is something that will give you more information, and we'll put it in your package next time, but very simply, the residents in the forest asked us to look at having some no parking zones on Tonkawa Pass. The issue is, if you get people parking on both sides of Tonkawa Pass, it becomes an issue of, will you be able to get emergency vehicles through there? Now, I will tell you that the fire chief tells me it's never an issue because his truck is always bigger than whatever car is in his way. But we don't want that to be the answer. So it's a fire department, that's right, the fire department chief. But we took a look at it. Chief and I came up with a plan. We're giving that to the engineer, because in the ordinance, if you have no parking zones, you have to detail with an engineering diagram of where these no parking zones are. Very simply, the way it'll be is it'll be no parking from 2252 to the first intersection in the forest. No parking on either side, okay? Then from that intersection to the last intersection, I cannot remember what the first intersection, Comanche to Timmerman, it'll be parking only on one side, and that neighborhood asked if we did one side only, that we put it on the side of where they have that green space area, which is, as you drive in, it'll be on the left side. So it'll be parking on that side, no parking on the other side, and then once you pass Timmerman, it'll be parking, there's plenty of room and be able to park there. And we don't believe too many people park there anyway, because there's not much going on, and there's no houses down there. So that, and the speed limit, is the reason why not asking you to approve ordinance 22 tonight. Hope that makes sense. There's nothing for you to approve, it's just an update. Any questions or comments on any of that, starting left side? Sir?
No.
Sir, ma'am, sir.
Yeah, just a comment on the speed limit. Someone, I guess the rumor had gone out that we were looking at 50 miles an hour on 3009. Boy, did I catch flack. And I'm sitting there thinking, 50, if you talk to the people in Trophy Oaks and people who have kids at that school, is way too high anyway. But, yeah, I just can't imagine that being 65, and I'm really glad they're going down to 50 when it happens.
Good, thank you. Okay, absent anything else, moving on. That concludes item 11. We're going to item 12, discussion of future agenda items, starting on the right side. Any items that you want on future agenda? Sir, ma'am, sir, sir, ma'am. Okay, nothing. Moving on to item 13, citizen comments. Actually, you know, I forgot to say something back on 11B, and I'm gonna go back because it has to do with the point that we just said was we don't have any citizens. I caution everybody to not judge our community now that nobody's here. I'm getting a lot of feedback, and I trust you are too, that a lot of people are now watching this from the comfort of their own home. And so that's important. Let's not interpret this as being people aren't paying attention and aren't caring. I'm not you, Karen, but I'm hoping, and anecdotally, I'm getting a lot of people saying they're watching it, and that's great. And that was the intent, to make this as accessible as possible to anybody and everybody and anytime they want to watch. And indexing it makes it even more accessible. So just wanted to throw that out. So that said, anybody got anything to say? All right. I don't have anything for item 13. Moving on to item 14, reports, comments from mayor and city council members on the things that are on this list. Starting left side, ma'am, do you have anything?
No, except where's Mr. Knifer?
I'm sure he's okay.
Sir.
Davenport High School is ahead of schedule. With that piece of information in my head, I'm working on trying to get those of us on the city council and maybe anybody else that's interested a tour of it. Naturally, of course, at the principal's discretion based on his workload of opening a brand new high school. Hopefully I'll have more to report on that next month, but it is ahead of schedule and it will be opening in August.
Great, thank you. Sir?
No, sir.
Ma'am?
Just a fun project I'm working on with Danville Middle School. I was approached by the 7th grade English teachers there. They had an essay contest for the kids focusing on crossing generations, what younger generations could learn from older generations. And they had a request of possibly getting the winners published in the Grapevine. So we've fussed with this a little bit, and we've got a couple of other citizens, Rose Andrews and Lily Baruki, as judges. You know, and we think we're going to be able to put it on the back of the calendar in February. The top 2 or 3 winners. We're still not done with judging, so you look for that. There's some fun essays from those kids.
Yeah, cool stuff. And just making sure we can fit it on there is all we got as a challenge. Okay. Sir, anything?
Just to say, I think that's a great idea. That would be fun.
Yeah, it's really
Kids would love it.
I actually do have one thing for this. Put on your calendar, February 22nd, 9 a.m. in Garden Ridge Elementary School is the Scouts Pinewood Derby. So talk it up, and I know some of you usually show up there, and I plan to be there as well. Okay, that concludes item 14. Item 15, we're going to go into executive session. City Council will recess, open meeting, reconvene in executive session. We have two different categories here. 551-071, consultation with attorney to seek legal advice in connection with deliberating the purchase, lease, exchange, or value real property and regarding related negotiations for city building projects and utility projects. And engineer, we need you in there for that, sir. And then number 2 is seek legal advice regarding requirements for Comal County Emergency Services and authority to contract for such services through an interlocal agreement. And then the second item, 15B, pursuant 551-074, personnel matters, and section 551-071, consultation with attorney, if necessary, discuss the duties, responsibilities, potential corrective action in relation to incident involving Eric Lohman and Brian Horn. We will recess at 7:53, and at 8:03, we will reconvene. Does that work for everybody? Sure. 8:03, we will reconvene in there. All right. And we are recessed, 7:53. Okay. We are reconvening this session at 8:26 PM. And council, are there any business items based on the executive session? Or right side?
No.
Left side?
No.
No business items? Closing item 16, business items. Moving on to item 17. Absent any further action, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Place 5 with a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
I think place 4 got it in there. Place 4 with a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. We are adjourned at 8:26 PM.